NBC News today reporting that, in fact, we don't know who we're killing in our drone strikes. Now, of course, the Washington Post had reported this before, but this corroboration is incredibly important. First, let me give you President Obama on how absolutely careful we are with our drone strikes before I tell you what the reality is. Watch.
We only target al-Qaeda and its associated forces.
Wrong.
Our preference is always to detain, interrogate, and prosecute them.
Wrong.
We act against terrorists who pose a continuing and imminent threat to the American people. And before any strike is taken, there must be near certainty that no civilians will be killed or injured. The use of drones is heavily constrained.
Every single one of those statements were wrong, and I think incredibly fair to say, a lie. Now, he already knew what the program does, and you're about to find out what it does, if you hadn't seen the Washington Post story from earlier. Richard Engler, great reporter at NBC News, reporting the CIA did not always know who it was targeting and killing in drone strikes in Pakistan over a 14-month period, an NBC News review of classified intelligence report shows. They said that other militants also were killed. They had on the list people who were al-Qaeda, and then they had a separate list called other militants. In fact, 1 in 4 of those killed by drones in Pakistan between September 3rd of 2010 and October 30th, 2011 were, quote, other militants. And the label was used when the CIA, this is fascinating, could not determine the affiliation of those killed, prompting questions about how the agency could conclude that they were a threat to U.S. national security. That's a great question. If you don't know who they are, how do you know they're a threat to our national security? Remember, they're in northern Pakistan. How do you know that guy with a gun down there is not protecting his farm or his home like anybody in Texas would do if you don't even know who he is? And let alone that farmer down there being a threat, an imminent and immediate threat to the United States of America. Ridiculous. Remember, there's a whole separate category for al-Qaeda. We're not talking about the al-Qaeda guys. We're talking about the guys they don't know, but they killed anyway. Quote, the uncertainty appears to arise from the use of the so-called signature strikes to eliminate suspected terrorists, picking targets based in part on their behavior and associates. A former White House official said the U.S. sometimes executes people based on circumstantial evidence. 2 different kinds of strikes. We've told you this before because of the Washington Post story. Personality strikes, where we know who we're executing. Signature strikes, where we have no idea who we're executing. Continuing. Yet officials seem certain that however many people died, and whoever they were, none of them were non-combatants. In fact, of the approximately 600 people listed as killed in the documents, only 1 is described as a civilian. Okay, that, of course, is a horrible joke. It's not funny, it's ridiculous. And in fact, let me skip ahead here and show you the number of civilians killed in Yemen and in Pakistan. And in Yemen, between 2002 and 2013, we had 44 to 54 drone strikes, total reported kill 233 to 333. These are by independent sources. Civilians reported killed were 12 to 45. Children reported killed were 2. Now, that's nothing compared to Pakistan. U.S. drone strikes hit between 2002 and 2013 368 times. The great overwhelming majority of those during the Obama administration, over 300 during the Obama administration. Total report killed 2,541 to 3,533. Civilians killed 411 to 884. Remember, these clowns that are in the administration are saying there was only 1 civilian killed. Independent reporters and nonprofit groups are saying no, up to 884, and those are the only ones they could confirm. It could be a much higher number. And you see the last number there, children reported killed 168 to 197. Now, President Obama, back in May, said the U.S. has a high threshold for taking lethal action. You saw him say it, right? A high threshold for taking lethal action. Apparently, not necessarily the case. Once again, NBC News explains, in so-called signature strikes, intelligence officers and drone operators kill suspects based on their patterns of behavior, but without positive identification. With signature strikes, the CIA doesn't necessarily know who it is killing. So let's stop here for a second before I give you more information on this. So they gather things like emails and etc. In fact, they don't know who it is, but they're guessing, right? Here, actually, let me give you a couple more quotes that give you even more details on this. They said one former senior intelligence official said that at the height of the drone program in Pakistan in 2009 and 2010, as many as half of the strikes were classified as signature strikes. So 50% of the time we don't know who we're killing, right? And here's the details. The agency can watch, for example, as an unknown person frequents places, meets individuals, makes phone calls, and sends emails, and then match those against other people linked to the same calls, emails, and meetings. So, remember, here at home, they're tracking our emails and our phone calls. In Pakistan, apparently they're doing the same thing. And if you happen to email or phone the wrong guy, and you happen to show up at the wrong place, if we don't know who you are, we're going to kill you anyway. No, but that's okay. They're only doing it in Pakistan. They would never do it here. I mean, they would never do it to U.S. citizens, except that they already have done it to 4 U.S. citizens. But that's okay. They were in Yemen and in Pakistan. I'm sure they wouldn't do it to U.S. citizens based on emails and phone calls that they collected here in the U.S., right? Not yet, at least. We think. But they're certainly doing it somewhere in the world. And what, it doesn't count if it's a person from Yemen or Pakistan? And think about how deeply immoral it is to kill someone when you don't even know who it is. One more quote on that. A half a dozen former and current U.S. counterterrorism officials told NBC News that signature strikes do generally kill combatants, but acknowledge that intelligence officials don't always know who those combatants are. Well, we killed some combatants. Who are they? I don't know. Would you do that? Really, I mean, no matter what security official or general came to you and said, hey, listen, we'd like to execute somebody. What would be your first question? Who is it, right? And they say to you, we don't know who it is. But he called some guy, and I think he might have emailed, and he went to a place in northern Pakistan that we think there are militants in. Yeah, but millions of people live in those areas of northern Pakistan. Wouldn't you ask that question? Wouldn't you want to know who you're killing? Apparently, our president does it. He presses the button. 50% of the time, we kill someone whose identity we don't know. It gets more Orwellian. Some of the officials said the moral and legal aspects of the signature strikes were often discussed, but without any significant change in policy. So, they take this so seriously. That's what the Obama administration always talks about. Oh, man, these are serious issues. And boy, we really take our time and look at him. Then do you do anything different? No, we execute the guy anyway, even though we don't know who he is. We don't change our policy ever. But we're very serious and somber about it. Finally, once a target has been killed, according to current and former U.S. officials, the CIA does not take someone out of the combatant category and put them in the non-combatant category unless, after the strike, a preponderance of evidence is produced showing the person killed was a civilian. In other words, you're guilty until proven innocent. But you can only be proven innocent by a preponderance of the evidence after we already executed you. Now, if that isn't Orwellian and that isn't deeply morally troubling, there's some chance that there's something wrong with you, that there's something wrong with our government, that there's something wrong with our democracy. We should never allow this to happen under our name. Now, our leaders are not dictators. They're our presidents. We elected them. They're our government, including Congress and the Senate. They're supposed to be our representatives. If this is what they're doing in our name, we must stop them politically. I mean, did you see that number? 168 to 197 children killed. Well, that's what happens when you attack people and you don't know who they are. These are drone strike victims. Brave New Foundation went and found some of the pictures. I can't bear to look at it anymore, and we should have given you a warning before we showed you those pictures. But think about how ugly our policy is. that a lot of us can't even bear to look at those pictures. But you should look at them, because we did that. The most forbidden thing in politics is saying that the president is immoral, and especially among Democrats for President Obama. You can't ever say that, because President Obama is a great and honorable man. If things went wrong, well, it was of course a mistake, a regrettable mistake, but they almost never go wrong. Don't worry, we're assured. I am not assured. Here it is, our government admitting 50% of the time we do a drone strike, we don't know who we're killing. I don't think any decent moral person would execute someone if they didn't know who they were. Unfortunately, our government has become deeply immoral and deeply indecent.